So you mentioned your first question being able to see kind of demand zones becoming supply or vice versa. Like how
Yeah.
where is that actually happening? So as far as that concerns, it happened a couple times even today. So I'll use it as an example for today. So right off the bat, kind of to walk through it. So for me, of course, I usually don't trade essentially until 1 hour after the market's opened,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So my market in Houston, Texas opens up at 8:30. Um, so 9:30 a.m. CST is when I kind of come into the room potentially to, maybe take a trade or look and see what's going on, basically.
Mhm.
So with that being said, usually that's the first time when I'll say, hey, let me start identifying zones
Mhm.
initially. What's the low of the day and what's the high of the day? Being what's the major demand zone and what's the major supply zone. So with that being said, on the left side of the blue line, the lowest point is just basically kind of this little line down here. Never really finished drawing it for the zone because it never came back close to it anyway, so I didn't care, in all
Yep.
honesty. So we can even ignore that. But after that, the next high of the day was basically this piece up here. So I would enter the supply zone up here. So with that being said, to answer your question, basically I wanted to see, okay, for me anyway, I wanted to basically find a put. So I wanted, since this was the high of the day, I was thinking maybe I'll make a play from here on downward. As a result, I was looking to see, well, where are the next zones, basically, if anything. The next clear one was basically right here, right? So this was the major supply, and then there's the next one kind of down here. So to answer your question, it's just basically a matter of just drawing it outward. So if I ended up drawing it all the way this way to the end of the day, like that, and I'll draw the rectangle to complete it. 17 plus 10, about right there. So this was a demand zone, right? It was created here, went up, bounced in it for technically a play, and then ran up. It was a clean play also. And you're right, it came back down, still tapped it, went back up. But at this point, it basically finally broke through right here, came back down, and then to answer your question, this is that one example here where it was a demand zone, but it became a supply zone, being that it tapped it on the top and then started kind of coming back downward, essentially. So this, if I could circle out, is where the demand zone became a supply zone. That makes sense a little bit?
Or where the supply zone became the demand zone.
So the demand zone is the one that's always at the bottom. The
Yeah.
supply zones are the ones
Yeah.
at the
At the
top.
top. Okay.
Yeah.
And this one
At-
right here, this one that you just drew was a demand zone, but then became a supply zone.
correct. Yep. Because it went on the opposite side of it and tapped it. Yep.
Okay.
Does that not make sense? Because I know you said okay, kind of low.
Oh no, I'm just staring at it. Just so I'm just like, okay, I got it because all right,
And
okay.
to rephrase it in one more way, since I'm a little worried, one way to look at it only for direction, from a direction perspective. So if something's bouncing on the top of something, like up and down, if something's bouncing up off of something, that's usually, hey, it's a demand zone. If something's bouncing below it, then that's basically bouncing off of a supply zone. So in all honesty, the only reason this thing became a supply zone, if you want to call it that, is just because, I mean, it's no longer can bounce on top because it broke through. So it just came back and kind of tapped that same zone. So I just kind of was like, well, okay, well, it's not a demand zone anymore. It's kind of a supply. So, okay, it's demand zone that became a supply zone. And then it kind of went downward,
Okay.
just directionally anyway.
Okay. That's how I think that helps me a little bit better. That's how I got to look at it, directional.
Yeah. And that's the same way I look at it. Don't overcomplicate it, for the most part.
Yeah, and I didn't
'Cause-
want to. That's why I was like, I need him to explain to me supply zones becoming demand zones and vice versa, because I'm like that part confuses me, and I kept finding myself like thinking about it and getting it confused with just regular supply and demand zones. Like I don't know what I'm drawing. Like I don't know, but this is supply zone becoming demand zone. I'm not sure.
and then at the same time, so even if you finish the course, like you said, if you realize even towards the end of it or the middle of it, the demand becoming supply, it's usually supposed to be the harder one to see because that's the hard day anyway, right?
Yeah.
That's what I identified as that. Some people can see it clearer than the regular bounces. Funny enough, some people say that this is more clear than all this stuff going on. They're like they don't. Some people don't even see this. They see this more clearly. Funny enough, just depends on the personality type and what they're accustomed to for the most part. That's
Yeah.
all this really is anyway.